After a disappointing entry last year with Unity, I, like many others, tempered my expectations for Syndicate. But Syndicate surprised me. It's a huge return to form for the Assassin's Creed franchise that makes some big steps forward for the series, but it still isn't without its shortcomings, which mostly arise from some of the usual Assassin's Creed wonkiness and a hand-fisted attempt at a boss fight. The biggest addition to Assassin's Creed with Syndicate is the introduction of dual protagonists who you can switch between freely when in the open world. These protagonists are twins Jacob and Evie Fry. Both of these characters are great and are the best protagonists in the series since Ezio. Jacob and Evie bounce off each other very well with their clashing personalities. Jacob being very brash, with an interest in building up his gang, the Rooks, whereas Evie's much more tactful and deliberate in her actions, and much more motivated to find the pieces of Eden. Something the Assassin's Creed games have always been good at is crafting a well-realised world to explore, but Syndicate's interpretation of Victorian London is by far the best world Assassin's Creed has ever let us loose in. London is beautiful, vast and meticulously detailed, with viewpoints to sync, collectibles to find and side missions to complete. Needless to say, if you want to 100% or Platinum Syndicate, you're going to be playing for a while. The story's also pretty decent, as Evie and Jacob liberate London from the Templars who control it. The only downside to this story is that more often than not, the major Templars are very one-dimensional, stereotypical bad guys, and Jacob does take the reins as the main character in most missions, which is a shame because Evie's a more interesting and likeable character who's ultimately very underutilised if you don't choose to play as her in side missions. Jacob and Evie are great, but obviously you need good side characters as well to make a compelling cast. Syndicate also delivers with its side characters, in particular with its use of real-world historical figures. We get to interact with Charles Dickens, Alexander Graham Bell, Florence Nightingale and Queen Victoria to name a few. All of these characters are immediately likeable and not overused, so thankfully these great characters are not run into the ground. Of course, all of this great world building means nothing without solid gameplay to back it up. Syndicate's gameplay is good, with occasional glimpses of greatness. The combat has been changed quite a bit in Syndicate. It feels much less sluggish than Unity's, and has a very fast arcadey feel, partially because of the combo building. The combat is good, but falls short in comparison to games like Arkham Knight. It still doesn't have the fluidity that the Arkham games do. I also think that both Evie and Jacob having a skill tree to level up adds a layer of depth. These minor RPG elements actually make a pretty big difference. I like that I could work on different branches of the skill trees of each character, which really helped a lot earlier on. Having Jacob excel in combat and Evie in stealth. This is clearly how the developers expect you to play though, seeing as Evie and Jacob both have 3 exclusive skills, Evie's being focused on stealth and Jacob's being more tailored to a head-on approach. And to max out the twin skill trees is quite a time commitment. I didn't have every skill unlocked until about 25 hours into my playthrough. And not only can you upgrade Jacob and Evie, you can also upgrade their equipment. And the game very much encourages you to be paying attention to your gear, with you finding schematics to craft new weapons and armour very frequently, both through missions and finding hidden chests. The parkour hasn't changed much from Unity. The downward parkour button is still very much appreciated and makes scaling down buildings feel much less clumsy. But even though the parkour hasn't improved, the overall traversal certainly has. The addition of a zipline makes traversal much faster than it's ever been. Grappling from roof to roof, gliding across London feels great, and is also a great way to take in the sights of this masterfully crafted city. Syndicate also features a mechanic that allows you to kidnap an enemy. Keeping them in front of you stops enemies from detecting you when in their territory. This is in theory a cool mechanic, but it's ridiculous how often the game encourages you to use this mechanic, and it gets boring very quickly. Something Unity did get right was its major assassination missions. They were open-ended and had multiple ways of tackling the situation at hand, and Syndicate expands on these even more, taking them to an almost Hitman-like level of non-linearity, with more choices and some very big environments to make your way through. These missions really stand out in memory as where I had the most fun with Syndicate. Every time a new Assassin's Creed rolls around, we wonder if this will be the one that fixes the Assassin's Creed gameplay awkwardness that we are all way too familiar with. Sadly, Syndicate still has these issues. Your character will sometimes not go where you want them to when climbing, which inevitably leads to them occasionally just jumping to their death. NPCs can also be a bit buggy. I had to restart a mission because a character who I was meant to be following got caught on the geometry of the world, so I could not proceed. Despite these issues, I still had a lot of fun in my 30 hours with Syndicate, and I still want to go back for more. These great characters and superb representation of Victorian London keep the bad from ever outweighing the good. I'm giving Assassin's Creed Syndicate an 8. If you enjoy my reviews, please like and subscribe or follow me on Twitter at Chris Fremont.